far as those diving boards and stuff go, I mean, the Hydra mount, that thing's just crazy. If you're a giraffe, sure, maybe it'll work for you. I get its concept, like, you know, short barrel guns, you just don't have the real estate. And that one Unity came out with, and that, I don't know if they make that diving board or somebody else does that attaches.
I think it's Unity. HRF Concepts.
Yeah. So that is lower. It's better. But those are designed for short rails. That's it. If you've got the rail space, get your laser out towards the end, you know, have it there close to the barrel. I'm not a big fan of all this height over bore. That could be a whole nother animal and can of worms that we open up. But
I totally plan on asking you. So
yeah, sweet. Yeah, this ought to be good. You could blow the internet up with some of these conversations. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of these like big diving boards either. I bought it just because I see these things show up in classes a ton. And man, you know, for me, it's like zeroing lasers is hard enough. When it's up on this thing, dude, there's like so much offset. And then it's like, hey, you almost have to do a parallel zero on this thing. Like if you did a converging, what's your converging? Like where does this thing hit at 200?
Right.
Who the hell knows, man? Way too much. Yeah, way too much going on with this, in my opinion. All right. So you brought it up, high mounts. Let's talk about it. Because I know I've seen you run Wilcox risers, right? So maybe talk about what's the deal with the high mounts, and then we can go into Wilcox stuff a little bit later. But
yeah, so I'm a huge fan of minimal height over bore, right? So again, if you go back to, you know, your target and whatever your offset is of your height over bore for your setup, that's increasing the under travel from CQB distance to whatever you're zeroed at, and then the over travel of the round. So you're overall increasing the size of your group, right? The higher you are over bore. And think about, again, the lowest common denominator, the lowest guy on the team, or a dude that just wants to buy a weapon setup for home protection, whatever it might be, and doesn't shoot a lot and understand where his holds are. And in the middle of combat or in the middle of a firefight, you can't just go, hey man, time out and let me laser, you know, range find this target and go, okay, he's at this distance. All right, I have this zero. All right, I want to shoot him right here, so I know I need to aim where. Right? You don't have that time. You don't have that luxury. The flatter that you can make your zero and your overall setup, the better. Now, with that being said, you know, for years I've run just an EOTech flat on my 416. And then when we went to, and this was in, you know, my realm here, when we talk about, you know, me working in CDD and doing the, you know, the vast job, our short barrel gun, right, which we call our confined space assault weapon. So it was a HK 416 with like a 11 or 11.5 inch barrel, whatever it was, I don't remember. We were assigned, and we did a down select. I ran the program for an optic and a magnifier to go on that weapon system. Now, guys could put whatever they wanted. It didn't matter, but we would assign an optic to every weapon system so that it could be carried in the arms room, and guys had the option. You could put whatever you wanted on there, and then individually squadrons would buy whatever guys wanted also. It didn't matter. But at least this way, the unit bought them, and they were there in the inventory if you wanted it. So the EOTech, the XPS is what we went with. We could have got for free the EXPS, right? Which the difference is it has the buttons on the side and it has the throw lever, which increases the height over bore by 7 millimeters. Yeah, so that optic right there, we could have got them all for free.
There we go.
Because they were part of the stop mod program. But we didn't want that additional 7 millimeters of height. And we didn't want the throw lever. We don't care. We're putting it on the gun. It's not coming off. And not really a big fan of the buttons on the side, just with kit and everything. Everybody's wearing stuff differently. Like when your weapon's sitting on you, can get bumped. So anyway, we went with the XPS. Ended up having come out of our budget and buy them. We competed all the different 3x magnifiers that were out there. At the time, EOTech had theirs and Aimpoint had theirs. The Aimpoint one was real fish-eyed. The EOTech one had way better glass, super clean. So we went with this. As soon as we got them in, they came originally with that Samson flip mount, which is a piece of shit. spring loaded. You push a button and then it would go over, and half the time it would go over and then off your gun, like it would break and fly off. Just, it was horrible, right? And then as guys mounted their, when guys mounted them, they would mount it in various locations on the rail or different spacing, and you would see the top of your EOTech or the side of your EOTech, like everything just wasn't lined up perfectly. So that's when I went to Wilcox and I said, hey, Jim, I want to build a riser. I said, I want it to have one spot where the EOTech mounts, and I want one spot where the 3x mounts. He already had a version of this flip mount right here that was for the front of the gun for the Skeet IR. So it was reversed. It would mount in front of your optic, and you could mount the Skeet IR on it and flip it to the side if you didn't want it or whatever it was, right? So I said, hey, I love that mount. I want that mount in this thing, you know, that flip piece, because it has also, you know, the ability to quickly detach the Skeet originally, but that would be for the 3x, would quickly detach from there. And we did the, you know, the built-in block for your rear flip up. Yep. And then it comes with another little riser that goes on the front if you want to run your, you know, co-witness your front iron with whatever height. But I was adamant and I said, hey man, I want this to be as low as absolutely possible. So we built this version here, which is the one I run. The rise on it is a 0.410. I have one right here. So the 410 was the rise on it. So you can see, I mean, it sits pretty low. And he had to come up with, his engineers came up with this unique way to mount it, because the original version that he showed me had the thumb bars on it, right? That would grab onto the rail, but it sat over a 1/2 inch tall. And I was like, unacceptable. I was like, I don't want it that tall. I was like, I want this thing on the dirt, like as low as you can possibly make it. So they had to totally re-engineer and come up with an attaching method that's different than anything else on the market. You have to take your rear charging handle off, and then this slides on the back of the gun, because these are fixed. They're machined in part of this mount. So it slides on to keep it as low as possible. And then you have these shims that will go in here. You don't have to run them, but they help when you get it on there to pop them in, and you know you're directly in the Picatinny rail. But then you just take these 4 set screws here, and you know, like you're doing a tire, you just kind of individually go through, and you could be anal, you should be with it, level the gun, put this on there, put a level on here, start tightening them down, and keep this mount level the best that you can with the gun when you tighten them all. But you tighten those down, and then boom, it's locked in, it's on the gun, and it's super low. You know, and then again, I throw my XPS, which is lower than the EXPS on there. And I have no clue what that overall height is. Like, I know guys now are all, I see articles and guys wrapped around the exact number of what their height. Dude, this works. This works for me. Yeah. I know this is a 0.410 only because that's how it's labeled, and I remember it from when we built it. We also make a 5/8. But I have no idea what my EOTech, what the number is on that, and I've never added them together because I don't care. Like, this is what works for me. I can shoot it. I can shoot it with nods on, no problem. It works with ProMask. Like, I don't care what that number is. Like, this is what I run, and this is what works. You know.
I think it's important. I think the important thing to note there for the conversation that exists on the internet about it is that the problem set for that was not to build a riser. The problem set was to build a way to locate the EOTech and the magnifier on a rifle, and it had to be some sort of riser, but the idea was to eliminate as much of the rise as possible. It was not supposed to be a riser. It's supposed to be a locator. I think that's really, because everybody's like, well, look, I can run a riser because these guys had this. They made a riser. They didn't make a riser. You made a locator.
Exactly.